Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is nutrition, and we're actually going to do a case study of someone named Brandon. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about what they asked me in terms of the questions, and then let's break down and see how we can analyze this and see where we can maybe give them some corrections. The reason why I think this will be helpful for everyone to hear is because they're kind of common mistakes that people make. It's also the process in which you should go through and analyze your own type of eating. So how would you be able to correct yourself? So that's what we want to look at here. So I was contacted via email, and this is a listener of the podcast. So thank you very much, Brandon. Yay! And he wrote to me, had a question for you that I've been thinking about. So I've been tracking my food, my macros, etc. very closely lately, down to measuring my food and counting sauces. Basing my BMR, and we're going to talk about that in a second, at 3,200 calories to lose weight. So what BMR is, basal metabolic rate, and what he really means by this is he's basing his overall caloric needs that at 3,200 would help him lose weight, 3,200 calories. So when you think of overall caloric needs, there's more than just BMR. So basal metabolic rate means how many calories do I burn at rest. We also have calories that we burn just by being generally active, like alive and moving around. You know, if I walk shopping 4 hours one day versus sit at the computer the next day, there's a differing caloric activity amount there. So that's something you would account for above BMR. You also have exercise activity. There's also things like thermic effect of food. The types of foods you eat require different degrees of burning calories to get the calories from the food. So there's a lot of things that factor into our daily caloric needs beyond just BMR. But I know exactly what he means by this, and this is the way that most people would say it. So he didn't say anything wrong here. I just figured I'd clarify a little bit about when we look at overall caloric usage per day, there's more than just BMR involved. So, again, what he's saying in this sentence is, I'm putting my caloric needs at 3,200 calories to help me lose weight. Meaning that he thinks he would actually need more than that in order to hold his current weight. So if he were to reduce his calories to 3,200, it would help him lose weight. So that's kind of what he goes with. The first question he says is, I never come close to hitting my macros. Could that cause me not to lose weight? And I'm assuming he means by underdoing the macros. Of course, if he were to overdo his macros and he wasn't coming close because he's overeating them, yes, that's not going to help you lose weight. So eating too much food does not help lose weight. So we know that that's probably not what he means. So he means I'm not coming close to hitting them, meaning I'm under them. And could that cause me to not lose weight? We're going to address that. So basically that question is, does under-eating cause me to actually not lose body fat? And that's what we're going to talk about in one of the questions. The other question we have is, when I do follow my diet, no cheating, I end up with a high carb, 1-to-1 protein ratio, meaning he gets as many carbs as he does protein. And he gets low fat levels around only 40 grams. And he follows it up with, I know keto is all the rage, so ketogenic diets, like keto diets, is all the rage, but is there any published evidence to the opposite? So, we're going to go through this, but I figured I'd give you a little background of what we're going to go through. So, or I guess foreground, I don't know what the heck that term. I'm just telling you what we're about to talk about. So, in a sense, he's basically asking is, I guess, if you look at it, is I had a question for you that I've been thinking about. So I've been tracking my macros very closely, based my BMR calories to lose weight. So if he's under eating, is that why he's not losing weight? And if he's eating high carbs and high protein, is that okay? So that's essentially what we're going to kind of sum this up as. Now, I followed up with a question asking, hey, what if you give me an example of the meal times and food types that you've been eating over the past couple days? His response was, I've been playing with intermittent fasting, but I skipped the weekend because I was single parenting, so it wasn't structured but still clean. So intermittent fasting is already not structured. It's a bullshit set of rules that you put around bad behaviors. We're going to talk about that in a second, and that just probably irritated a lot of people. But if you're already just not following that, good Lord, who knows what you're following? So you're just randomly eating, and you're hoping you're eating good things, but that doesn't mean you're dieting. So you're resisting the temptation to just eat cheesecake and ice cream any time of the day. Therefore, you're dieting. Nope. Brandon has a good sense of humor, so hopefully he's not getting pissed off yet. What he sent me, what he had the other day was his first meal was 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Not good, unless he woke up at noon, but he didn't. So he went all day without food. He then had grilled chicken, tortilla chips, and barbecue sauce. Interesting combination. So it's almost like nachos, but you forgot like the beans, the cheese, the lettuce, all the stuff that makes it nachos. Then at 5:30, so only 3.5 hours later, Chick-fil-A sandwich, fries, and superfoods salad, whatever the hell that is. So probably a salad that still has like a lot of calories in it. And then 10 p.m. was chicken, rice, and veggies, but he didn't have a lot. He only had 4 ounces of chicken, only half a cup of rice, and half a cup of vegetables. So very small meal. So that was his whole day. His whole day was only 3 meals, all in the afternoon and the evening. And the overall calories for that day would have been significantly under what he needed for the day. And they all would have came after he needed them. So he went all day, ran his machine of his body completely empty, and then tried to put calories in at the end. Not going to go well. So we're going to break this down. So when you look at anyone's diet, there are some there are some cases in which what I'm about to go through would be different. But I'm going to do this as a broad-based thing that's going to hit most people. So if you're looking at your diet and you're wondering, I'm getting some results, but I'm not getting all the results I want, or things have kind of stalled out. What could I be doing wrong? So how do we address that? First of all, you have to listen to podcast number 41, titled Diet Right, What Matters Most. Podcast number 41 tells you, by the title, what matters most when you're dieting. What are the most important things that give you the biggest bang for your buck or have the biggest influence on whether or not you make progress? And those are calories, protein intake, meal timing, macronutrient quality, and then everything else. And what this refers to is the order of their importance. So how many calories you eat is more important than whether you're eating like white rice versus brown rice, or whether you're eating, 0 grams of sugar all day. So if you're doing great, I'm doing 0 sugar. There's no sugar in my diet whatsoever, but I'm eating 10,000 calories a day. Not going to help. And then also eating too little of calories is just as bad of a hindrance. We're going to talk about that more here in a later. But what you eat is secondary to how much you eat. How much you eat matters most, okay? That's why calories is number 1 on the list. Number 2 is protein intake. To make sure you have enough protein in your diet. Very rarely do people eat too much, but that does happen. So make sure you have enough protein in your diet so that way you're not overeating your energy nutrients, which are carbs and fats. So protein does a lot of maintenance and repair and fixes things and builds things in our body. It's kind of like getting a tune-up on the body. It's the worker macronutrient. It does work for us, okay? Carbs and fats, and I'm very simplifying this, by the way, but carbs and fats are our energy nutrients. They're the ones who give us energy. So if you think of a car, carbs and fats is the gas in the gas tank. Protein is the maintenance guy who comes around and makes sure your car is functioning well. So that's a good way to kind of think of them. So that would be the secondary most important thing is, are we eating enough protein? The third most important thing is our meal timing. Are we matching when we eat to when we need to eat? Okay? Am I matching my calorie output to my calorie intake? So that's what you want to measure. So the next thing, like we said, the fourth thing would be macronutrient quality. That's whether something's, organic or not, or whether you're eating quinoa versus brown rice versus white rice. All that stuff matters, but it doesn't matter anywhere near as much as people think it does. And it's only the fourth most important thing. Okay? So if we look at your diet, or Brandon's diet, well, the first thing we would look at is total calories. Are calories correct? Are they being accounted for? So he's setting his BMR at 3,200 calories, meaning that he thinks he burns more and uses more than 3,200 calories every day. And because he knows he believes he uses more than that, he believes if he were to make the number now being 3,200, it would be a reduction, and that reduction will help him lose body fat. So first of all, without me asking more details and getting too much into this, we would have to first establish what our total calories are per day. That is podcast 153. How many calories do I need? The best way to figure that out is not through equations. Do not use equations. Write down what you eat for 3 to 5 days. You would then go through a tracking app and enter the foods and the amounts into that. You would see what is your average intake. So maybe one day you eat 4,000 calories, one day you eat 2,500 calories, next day you eat 3,000 calories, next day you go out with friends and it's an 8,000 calorie day, some crazy stupid number, I'm just making up numbers. But you'll see that there's going to be a lot of variance. Very rarely do people eat very consistently. Okay, they're only going to eat consistently now that they're paying attention to it. But randomly, when we're not paying attention to what we're doing, we're very inconsistent with calories. So again, podcast 153 tells you how to figure out how many calories do you need. That'll figure out how many calories are you using now to stay where you are now, plus tell you what calories you need to go down to if you were wanting to lose body fat and body weight. So that's the first thing we look at is calories. Is he eating the right number of calories? So I'm going to leave it up to him, and we're going to kind of move on so I don't spend the whole podcast just on that. But that would be the first thing he would want to do is listen to podcast number 153 and make sure that his number of 3,200 calories is correct. Okay, are you listening, Brandon? Okay, so go listen to podcast 153 and make sure 3,200 calories is the correct number. Then what you want to do is make sure that you're tracking those, which it sounds like you already are, and make sure you're pretty consistent within that every day. So it says that you're tracking your nutrients, your calories, but you've said that you don't come close to hitting them. Most likely what happens then is you're using some kind of equation to estimate your BMR, and that equation is wrong. So if you're not hitting your calories on a regular basis and you don't have energy fatigue, you're not feeling cranky like you want to punch everybody in the face, and you're not just feeling worn out and tired, then probably you don't need the calories that it says you do. So this kind of makes sense. Like if I have, say something says I need 3,000 calories and I'm eating 2,000 and I feel fine, I probably didn't need the 3,000, right? I wouldn't feel fine if I truly needed 3,000 and I wasn't eating it. So that equation is probably wrong. So that could contribute to why you're not seeing any progress, is you're based off of an incorrect number. So go listen to podcast 153. If you have questions after that, Brandon, shoot me an email. So that would be the first thing to look at. Then we would want to track our macronutrients, which he sounds he's already doing. And you want to make sure you actually are kind of like hitting those numbers now that you maybe have a correct number. So if your calories are correct based on the information in 153, you're tracking it and you're hitting your numbers, then you're doing well. Let's move on to the next item. So if we knew calories was most important, that's the first place we looked. So if we're doing well there, we then look at the second most important place. And that would be protein intake. Making sure you're eating enough protein so that way you're not overeating carbs and fats and or under-eating them. So sometimes my clients who want to do bodybuilding, they try to eat like 400, 500 grams of protein every day, which is absolutely unnecessary. And then they feel like they have no energy even though they have high calories. So they'll have high calories, but almost like too high of a percentage of those calories are coming from protein. Therefore, they're not having enough energy calories. So they don't have enough room in their total caloric intake of the day to have enough carbs and fats to have energy. They're eating too much of the maintenance style calories. So having too much protein can ruin a diet, and having too little of protein can ruin a diet. So the podcast for protein intake is number 33. So how much protein do I need? In general, that's going to put us between the equation answer, by the way, a little shortcut here, is 0.6 grams to 1 gram of protein per pound of kind of lean body weight. So what you think you would weigh at like 10% body fat, something like that. So if I weigh 200 pounds and I want to lose weight down to, like, say 180, then that means I'll probably be pretty lean at 180. So I would set my protein intake to 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of 180. Okay, so whatever the hell that math is. So I'll let you guys figure that out. I think it's like 130 something to 180. But that would be the grams of protein you would look for per day. Now that varies depending on activity level, training goals, the goal outcome, whether you're trying to build muscle or lose fat, changes on a lot of stuff. So listening to podcast 33 will help you find out where within that window you should fall. But that is the window is 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of lean body weight. So since he's using a macro tracking system, if that macro tracking system was correct, okay, so if his number of 3,200 was correct and it was giving the correct percentages, it would all be quote-unquote correct, but we can't assume that. So sometimes, like macro equations and tracking apps, they might put you at, say, like 20% protein of your overall intake, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that 20% protein correctly puts you in that 0.6 to 1 gram per pound. So we're going to talk about this down here a little bit further, is how do you actually establish your macronutrients? So we're going to talk about that further. But those are the first two things that we look at with anybody's diet is, are they controlling total calories and are they aiming for the right number? The second thing is, are they controlling their protein intake and are they aiming for the right number? Good. So the third element we look at is meal timing. Are you matching your caloric intake, okay, to when you need the activity, like when you need the calories for activity? So if my activity is a bell curve, where I get up in the morning, I start getting more and more active towards the middle of the day, then I get less and less active towards the end of the day. So it's a bell curve. Your caloric intake should match that. Overwhelmingly, most people, they eat nothing during the day or not enough because they deem themselves to be too busy. Then they overeat at night. Even if your calories are controlled, you're eating the right amount of calories, you're eating the right amount of protein, but you're not eating them at the right time, that causes problems and that will stall out your progress eventually. Okay? So the podcast for meal timing is 249. The podcast for meal frequency, okay, how many meals a day should you have, is 329. So not matching caloric intake to activity levels leads to moments of being overfed. So say at night, you're not doing much, but you're trying to eat all the food that you should have eaten during the day. That creates a caloric surplus in that moment. So too often when people think of calories per day, they think of it as a daily thing, 24 hours, per 24 hours. Our body adapts and makes changes per second. So this is why if somebody eats nothing all day and then they try to eat, like, all of their calories in a piece of cheesecake at night, they're going to look like shit. So they might not look as bad as they used to look, but they're not going to look anywhere near as good as they could have. And they're going to deal with moods, cravings, all this other bullshit, and just have a shitty diet because they lack discipline to eat correctly. So we don't want to do that. So if we have moments where we overeat compared to our activity level, even if your daily amounts are controlled, but that moment is not controlled, okay, in that moment, you will produce a caloric excess, and your body will be likely to store some of those calories as fat. Then, when you go during the next day, for example, and you don't eat anything but you're really active, your body will try to chew away at that fat storage. But that's the fat storage it stored last night, not the fat that you already had on you. So all you really end up doing is taking off and replacing excessive fat, not getting rid of the fat that was already on you. So when you run your body in a deficit, it does burn body fat. That is true. If the deficit is too extreme and too long, it'll also start to burn muscle tissue. And it sensitizes the body so that at the following moment of caloric surplus, maybe later that night when you overeat again compared to your activity level, it's again higher degree of likelihood it'll store the fat of the excess calories as fat rather than putting them towards muscle repair and building and doing all that extra fun stuff and using it in the body. So what this means is that you're going to overeat your energy nutrients when you don't need them. So your body isn't going to just get rid of them. It's going to store them for maybe sometime in the future when you do need them. So if your everyday pattern is under eating during the day, your body is going to feel the stress of that. It'll chew off some body fat, it'll chew off some muscle. And then at night, when you overeat based on your activity level, it'll try to store all of the excess back as fat to protect itself for the very next day when you do the same pattern again. So, this is the first kind of mistake that he is making, is he is not matching his caloric timing, okay, when he's taking his calories in versus when he's using the calories for energy. That is absolutely the first thing he should look at, and it's the first thing that would cause him to stall out, maybe have a reduction in like quality of fat loss results, lowered recovery from workouts leading to like fatigue, muscle soreness prolonged beyond normal. He's also going to have lessened strength, lessened muscle mass, lessened endurance. So the system overall just operates slower and less efficiently and just worse and worse and worse over time if you do not match your calories in versus your calories out. So that's the first place he should look. So, sorry about that. Now, he did say, like, if he's single parenting. So what if he's super busy? And everyone uses this excuse, by the way, of I'm too busy to eat. Bullshit, you're just not taking the discipline to stop and eat. Go ahead, argue. You already came up with whatever your standard excuse is. I'm sure it popped into your head already. So go ahead, tell me, what's your excuse? Why are you special? Okay, yep. Oh, what do you know? You're right. You are the most busiest person on the entire freaking planet. So the rules of nutrition do not apply to you. So you don't have to follow this rule, and you'll still get six-pack abs and live happily ever after. You're so special, you don't have to follow this rule. Congratulations. Now, did that work? No. Am I a jackass? Yes. Okay. So I do understand being busy. I own and operate a business. I have another side business, and I just am a busy human being in general. So I understand the idea of being busy. I'm not completely full of crap and being a total jerk. Partially full of crap and partially a jerk is probably true. But I do understand being busy. You just have to have the discipline to stop and kind of eat some quick things. So just the discipline to stop. So when people say they're out and about and they're traveling, you're probably passing 100 gas stations as you're running errands. Just stop into one, grab a banana, apple, grab a bag of cashews. You can get some stuff to just put in your face that is relatively healthy and allows you to eat at the time that you're supposed to eat, okay? You can also have quick foods prepared. So you can buy, say, packages of nuts. Like you can buy a big bag, like 5-ounce bag of cashews, and just leave it in your vehicle. And then whenever you need it, you snack on it, or you leave it at work in the desk, in like a drawer on the desk. You pull it out and snack on it. So it takes discipline to value your health over whatever the hell you think you're too busy with. Now, if you say, I'm busy with my kids, you know, what am I supposed to prioritize over my kids? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, drop the self-righteous bullshit, okay? First of all, you need to be healthy to take care of your kids. So quit that bullshit. Take care of yourself so that way you can take care of your kids. Also, show them what the hell they're supposed to do when they're an adult. Show them how you're prioritizing your health and teach them how to do the same for themselves. Use it as a teaching moment. Okay? So don't feed your kids shit while you're trying to eat healthy food. Feed them healthy stuff too. Okay? So use your kids and teach them. Would you want them to be where you are today? So when they're your age, do you want them having the same struggles? If not, then why the hell are you not teaching them? Why aren't you leading by example? You lead by example with everything else you try to teach them. When you tell them to be a good person and not gossip behind people's backs, you teach them that by not doing it yourself. When you tell them, you know, hey, if you get something dirty, you got to, like dishes, like get dirty dishes. You put them in the sink. You show them that by you doing it first. Brush your teeth, you brush your teeth with them. You want them to shower every day, you shower every day. So you already, being a parent, is leading by example, not by word only. You got to tell them the right things, but you got to do it too. Don't be hypocritical. And the same is true of nutrition. So if you think you're too busy to eat healthy because of your kids, you're doing a disservice for your kids. Okay? So you got to take care of it yourself and teach your kids how to take care of themselves. So that way they're not in the same boat you're in. Now, what if your kid's like a half a year old? I understand the kid's not going to soak in any lessons at 6 months old, but they're also probably not going to freak out if they have to cry an extra 10 seconds for you to shove a piece of food down your face. Okay? So you just have to have the discipline to stop and eat. If your kids are old enough, use it as a learning lesson. If the kids are young, then just have quick, snappy foods ready. Just have stuff sitting around the house or sitting around wherever you're most busy. And just stop for 10 freaking seconds and take a couple bites of something. That's all it takes. Now, like I said, I am a person who's also busy. I have fallen on that excuse in the past. So I've been a dumbass and used that excuse in the past and thought I was the most specialist person on the planet and I was super duper busy. Guess what? I wasn't. Imagine that. So I learned, for example, like I used to eat, try to have a quick bite of something in between clients, but then I found out that some clients got snarky and had attitudes. And they're like, where's my food? Or why don't I get any food? Or I'm dieting and here you are eating. And it's like, oh dear God, didn't want to listen to that bullshit. So I started carrying around, got rid of a client, first of all, who was being snarky like that because they're not a good human being. So just because they were, overweight and they had food restrictions didn't mean that I had to follow their same restrictions. They were lazy and caused their own misery, therefore they have to deal with the misery of getting out of it. That's not anybody else's fault, that's your fault. So one of the things I did was I started just drinking calories. So I would have like a container with me and I'd drink some calories while the client and I were talking. And I might only sip on maybe 100, 200 calories the whole hour, but it was something that gave me a way of getting calories in even while I was busy. So when I first opened the gym, I was doing 50 hours of in-person training a day. I mean, a week. So it felt like a day. But so some of those days were 10, 12 hours. And it would be in like 6 hour, 7 hour chunks. So I couldn't stop to sit down. I couldn't stop to do anything for 6 to 7 hours. So I would just drink calories the whole time. And that helped me get my calories in. It helped me match my meal timing and my activity levels. So I found a way to get it done. So if you truly want results, you just have to find a way to get it done. You have to have the discipline to keep looking into it, analyze your schedule, see if there's holes, see if there's ways you can get it done. Okay? So that would be my first thing for Brandon, would be to have him try to address his caloric timing with his activity level. Try to eat more of your calories during the times when you're using more calories. That's going to help you all of a sudden lose more body fat, even if you make no changes to your caloric intake. You're just going to be better utilizing the calories that you eat. So you will get leaner by changing nothing else, by simply just better matching your activity level to your intake level, okay? Then I would have you revisit that calorie total. Like I said, that BMR of 3,200, go listen to podcast 153 and see if that number is correct. And then make sure your protein is correct. If you're having a 1-to-1 ratio with your carbs, you're either under-eating carbs or you're over-eating protein most likely. So those are the things I'd look at. Notice that none of this had to do with whether he was eating too many carbs or too many fats, whether he was eating brown rice or white rice, whether it was organic or not organic, or all the other crazy shit people think of. So that would be my first thing to look at, Brandon, is listen to 153, see if your calories are correct. So you can listen to podcast 33 to learn about the protein, and then see if your protein is correct for your body weight and goals and lifestyle. Then try to better match your meal timing, okay? And that's podcast 249. So check those out. Analyze all that data, see if you can get it closer to what you're doing, and you're probably going to see results pretty quickly from that. So now your individual specific questions is what happens if you're not hitting your macros. So if you are eating too little of calories on a regular basis, that would impair fat loss. Now you would feel that. You would absolutely feel like crap. You'd feel tired all the time, run down all the time, just not feeling good. It would be extremely, extremely noticeable that you were under eating your calories. So oftentimes what happens when people think they want to lose weight, they think they have to be miserable. So they'll sometimes accept that misery and think it's okay. When you want to lose weight in a healthy manner, there are times where you're hungry, but overall you should feel okay. You shouldn't feel totally miserable all day. So that would be the first thing to look at. And again, podcast 153 will tell you if you're eating too little. Then you said when following your macros correctly, you have a 1-to-1 carb to protein ratio and lower fat intake. So again, you got to listen to podcast 33, figure out how much protein you should have, okay? Then you're going to have 153 that told you how many calories you should have. So what you do is within the calories you're supposed to have, you establish your protein content. The amount of calories left after that, okay, once you have, like say I'm supposed to have 3,000 calories a day and I have 500 in protein. That means I have 2,500 calories left over. That is what you use for fats and carbs. It doesn't really matter which one you do, whether it's mostly fats or mostly carbs, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, doesn't really matter. You just want to match kind of, if I'm eating high activity levels, I want to eat carbs. If I'm low activity, I want to eat fats. That's mostly true, and that's going to do well for most people, okay? Now, the last question is published evidence as to the opposite of ketogenic being good. I'm not sure exactly what you meant by that, so do you mean that maybe ketogenic diets aren't good? And if that is what you meant, you're right. So podcast 129, titled Starvation Diets, Intermittent Fasting, and Keto, will tell you the negative things about ketogenic diets. There are some positives, but overwhelmingly it's not the best way for lifelong sustainable eating for most people. Does it work for certain people? Yes. Are those usually the zealots or whatever the hell you say that? They're usually the psychopaths who tell all of us else that we need to do it that way too. Just because it fits their lifestyle doesn't mean it fits everyone else's. So podcast 129 is what you should look for, okay, to learn more about ketogenic diets. Now, do you mean opposite of keto?